Gary Coleman's ex-wife is under the spotlight for suspicion of his death.
What you talking about, Willis?
Hey yo, thanks for tuning in to The Source, your source for celebrity news. Okay, so today we need to talk about this Gary Coleman mess, because as a child, Gary Coleman was one of my favorite childhood stars, and we need to see if we need to get Gary some justice. Alright, so do me a favor and hit that like button, and if you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel, because we're getting ready to get into it. Alright, so here's the deal. If you're a 70s baby, then when you were a kid, it's very likely that at some point in your childhood, you found yourself sitting in front of the TV with a big bowl of cereal, watching shows like The Facts of Life, Happy Days, Three's Company, The Jeffersons, Good Times, and Different Strokes. And one of your favorite characters was Arnold Jackson, played by Gary Coleman, who gave us the iconic catchphrase, "What you talking about, Willis?"
What you talking about, Oscar? What you talking about, man? What you talking about, Willis? What you talking about?
And you know darn well that at one point in your lifetime, both Gary Coleman and Webster were bona fide superstars. I mean, they were both grown men playing kids, but they were bona fide superstars. I mean, y'all gotta admit, Gary Coleman was mad big. I mean, he was on the cover of Ebony, he was on the cover of Jet, he was on the cover of TV Guide with Nancy Reagan, and at one point, Hanna-Barbera even gave him his own cartoon TV series called The Gary Coleman Show. Now, after Different Strokes went off the air in 1986, Gary, who played Arnold, Todd Bridges, who played Willis, and Dana Plato, who played Kimberly Drummond, all suffered major setbacks in Hollywood because they were all typecast as kids and nobody really wanted to hire them as adults. As a result, Gary experienced financial hardships, especially when he discovered that his trust fund, which was worth nearly $18 million, had been depleted by his adoptive parents, and after all his hard work, he was basically broke, because when it was all said and done, the people who adopted him only left him about $220,000 in his bank account. Gary's discovery that his parents who adopted him basically robbed him blind led to a lawsuit against both of his parents and his agent for misappropriation of funds when Gary was about 25 years old. And he won the case, but he was only able to recoup less than $1.3 million. And the entire episode precipitated a downward spiral for Gary that included bankruptcy, and in 1993, Gary admitted that he was so down and out that he tried to unalive himself twice. During this time, Gary was battling depression because he was trying to adjust from growing up in the spotlight to living a normal life, which included working as a security guard in LA while making occasional TV appearances. During this time, specifically the 1990s and in the early 2000s, Gary worked as a security guard and was often stationed at film sets, parking lots, shopping malls, and office buildings. As a matter of fact, in 1998, Gary made headlines once again when he punched out a fan who kept following him and harassing him for an autograph while he was working as a security guard. The incident led to a misdemeanor assault charge for Gary, and the case was widely publicized. Now, when discussing the incident, Gary was like, "Listen, I just want to be seen as a regular guy earning a living." Alright, so despite how jarring it seemed to fans who had grown up watching him on TV, Gary Coleman often expressed frustration over being judged for doing honest work simply because he had once been famous. In other words, Gary was over there like, "That was then, this is now, please, let me earn my check in peace."
I'm not ashamed of making an honest living. A dollar is a dollar, whether it's 1,000 of them or 100 of them. Whether it's, work as a security officer, which I have done and I am not ashamed of because it's a job. Hey, gentlemen, that's a good game. Keep playing it.
It was a far cry from the celebrity money he was making during his time on Different Strokes. First season was $1,500 per episode, then $20,000, then $40,000, until eventually,
and somewhere along the line, it became $70,000
per show.
Per show. Yeah, it just kept growing and growing and growing.
What you talking about?
He's a prodigy, really.
Conrad Bain played his adoptive father, Mr. Drummond.
He had comedy timing right from the first line of the first episode.
I've never seen a black goldfish before.
That's okay. He never saw a rich white man before either.
But Bain also saw the pain behind the scenes. Coleman was constantly ill.
Unfortunately, Gary Coleman's troubles didn't end with his parents trying to rob him, and they also didn't end with him working as a mall cop, because trouble seemed to follow Gary for his entire life. For example, in 2005, he moved to Santa Quin, Utah, and in the first 5 years that he lived there, police were called more than 20 times in incidents that were connected to Gary.
Yes, today is my birthday, and it's going to be a happy birthday whether or not you're here or I'm here. But there is one thing I wanted to let you know without holding them up anymore. There never has been and never will be any nude photos of Gary Coleman. I don't care how much you wish it and how much you want it. It ain't happening. And unless you're really good at Photoshop and I find out about it, those aren't going to exist either. So you guys have a good day, and I'll see you when I come out. Well, that was easy enough.
So Gary, what happened today?
Nothing you'd be interested in. No jail time, not leaving my house, not paying any heavy fines, and now I'm just gonna go to lunch.
Plea was he pled guilty to criminal mischief, violence, 1 count, Class B misdemeanor.
Then, in 2006, he got a small role in a movie called Church Ball, which was a low-budget comedy where he met his future wife, Shannon Price, who was a production assistant on a film. Gary was in his late 30s and Shannon was about 19 years old. However, despite the 17-year age gap, they started to date quickly, and on August 28, 2007, they tied the knot during a secret private ceremony in Nevada. During a later interview, Gary would go on to reveal something that showed that there was trouble in the water, because during the interview, Gary said that him and his wife had never been physically intimate. According to Gary, they didn't have time or a normal marriage. Additionally, Shannon reportedly struggled with emotional regulation and anger issues, and things got so bad that the couple appeared on several reality TV shows like Divorce Court and The Insider, where they publicly aired out their grievances. As a matter of fact, during their appearance on Divorce Court in 2008, Gary and Shannon got into a heated argument, and Gary said, "She lets her emotions take over. She throws things at me. She tries to hit me. I think she has the capability of doing great harm." Now, in response to Gary's accusations, Shannon didn't deny that she was over there like Diddy throwing vases at Cassie. Instead, she said, "If I had emotions come up, I would throw things or scream." During a later interview, Shannon would go on to admit that her and Gary argued over money, and she also said, "Yeah, I slapped them a couple of times. People smack each other. They hit each other. People do it. If you deny it, you're crazy." Alright, so according to Gary Coleman's attorney, Randy Kester, it got so bad that Gary would often contact him to discuss possibly getting a restraining order on Shannon Price. However, Randy says that Gary never went through with it. So as you may have expected, in 2008, after just 1 year of marriage, Shannon and Gary got divorced. But despite the divorce, they continued to live with each other on and off, which often confused people about the nature of the relationship. Unfortunately, similar to many of the years of his life, 2010 would also prove to be a bad year for Gary, as he suffered 2 seizures during that year while recovering from heart surgery. But despite these health setbacks, he seemed to be improving. Then on May 26, 2010, just as things were seeming to look up, it was reported that Gary tumbled down a flight of stairs inside his Utah home, striking his head and losing consciousness. According to sources, his ex-wife Shannon Price stated that she found him and called 911, saying that there was blood everywhere. Shannon claims that she heard a big loud boom coming from downstairs in the house, and she called for Gary, but he didn't reply. When she went downstairs to investigate, she says that she found Gary laying down on the floor with blood around his head. During the 911 call, the operator asked Shannon to render assistance to her ex-husband Gary Coleman, but Shannon Price said that she could not do it. Why? Because she's absolutely 100% scared of blood.
911, let's see, just your emergency.
A call for help in the small town of Santa Quin, here at the home of child TV star Gary Coleman. The caller, Gary's wife, Shannon Price.
I had my husband go make me some food downstairs. He just got home. I heard this big bang. I went downstairs, blood everywhere. I don't know if he's okay.
The time, 12:50 in the afternoon, a week ago Wednesday.
His head is bloody. There's blood all over the floor. I don't know what happened. I really don't know what happened. I just heard this bang and I went down there and he's on the floor. Send someone quick, because I don't even know if he's going to be alive, because there's a lot of blood on the floor.
Then something odd happens.
Gary, are you okay?
Shannon says she can't help her dying husband because of an aversion to blood.
Can you go to where he is and help him? He's lethargic. I can't really help him. I just can't be here with the blood. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I can't. And there's blood all over and I can't do anything. Where is he at now? On the floor in the kitchen. I've just been kind of sick and, I don't want to be traumatized right now. Is he conscious? I don't know. No, he was like bubbling at the mouth. I'm gagging. I got blood on myself. I can't deal.
Gary then gets up.
Can you tell him to try and put pressure on the back of his head? No, we can't. It's like all bloody, and I'm not trying to do. He's not with it. I just don't want him to die. I'm freaking out, like really bad. Don't move. Stay there, okay? You have to put this on your head. Whoa. Keep pressure on this, okay? Hold this. Whoa. He's bloody, like all freaking over. Tell him he needs to sit down. You need to sit down. Sit down. Gary, sit down. What's wrong? Look at the floor. Sit down. Oh, sit down.
I don't know about you, but to me, nothing in that 911 call sounded right. From her tone, to the way that she was talking to Gary, to the way that she's telling the operator that she can't tell him to put a compress on his head because he's lethargic and he doesn't understand, to the point where she was like, I can't be here. That right there is crazy, and I really do believe that investigators may need to look back into this. Listen, let me know down below. To you, did that 911 call sound right?
Something's wrong here. Dead giveaway.
Charles, thank you very much.
Giveaway.
Alright, so anyhow, when the police arrived, the back of Gary's head was split open, but he briefly regained consciousness and was able to talk to the police. But because he was severely disoriented, he told the police that he couldn't remember what happened. Then, when the EMTs arrived, Gary was able to walk with help from the house to the garage where they had a stretcher waiting, and then they immediately rushed him to the hospital, but once he got there, things took a turn for the worse the very next day. Gary was reportedly awake and lucid on the morning of May 27th, so it appeared that he could possibly make a full recovery. Unfortunately, his condition got worse that afternoon and he slipped into a coma. Within 24 hours on May 28th, someone made the decision to take Gary off life support, but according to reports, Gary's attorney Randy Kester said he doesn't know who had the authorization to pull the plug. Eventually, people realized that it was Shannon Price who made the call to terminate Gary's life, because she claims that she had to pull the plug because the doctors told her that Gary had no chance of survival. However, Gary's closest friends question her story and her motive.
Overnight, I spoke with Gary Coleman's ex-wife, Shannon Price. She was at Gary Coleman's bedside when the actor passed away. And as you're about to see in this interview, she is still clearly fragile. She arrived in a wheelchair looking very frail, and she stayed in that chair throughout the entire interview, even having to take a break when she thought she might be having a seizure.
I've had a lot of health issues in the last 2 months. As you guys know, I recently have seizures, and I've had a lot of anxiety. I really miss my husband a lot, and I can barely get around, and I mean, it's been a trial.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what happened the night he fell?
I asked him if he could make me some food, and he went downstairs, and I heard this big smack. I rushed down there and found him lying in a pool of blood.
You said, I've had a lot of speculation out there. I've had a lot of people sit there and say, yeah, she pushed him.
People can say whatever they want, because I know the truth. I would never hurt my husband, ever.
As a matter of fact, given Gary's troubled relationship with Shannon, although they had divorced, she was still a regular presence in his home. Some tabloids immediately suggested that her decision to end Gary's life support amounted to moita. When discussing the issue, Gary's attorney said, Gary never told me that they got remarried, and he told me a lot of things. I think he would have told me that. So basically what he was saying was, because they weren't married, she didn't have the right to pull a plug. Listen, let me know down below. If you fall into a coma, does your ex-spouse have the right to pull a plug? Or does that right go to the person that you have named in your will, or the next of kin or blood relative? Let me know in the comment section below.
Gary Coleman's estranged parents want to know exactly what happened leading up to their son's death. Telling People.com they've tried repeatedly to get in touch with Gary's wife Shannon, but she won't call them back.
Gary Coleman's parents are telling us they want answers. They want to know what happened to their son.
Okay, so immediately after Gary passed away, Shannon claimed that despite the divorce, she was entitled to his estate because he was her common-law husband, even though he made a will. Interestingly, Gary made it a point to stipulate in that will that he didn't want anyone to attend his funeral who had a financial stake in him. Unfortunately, the fight over his estate was so bad that Gary Coleman ended up not having a funeral at all. Alright, so that brings us up to what's going on right now. Gary Coleman is back in the news because the other day it was revealed that his ex-wife Shannon Price agreed to appear in the A&E docuseries Lie Detector, Truth or Deception. And while she was on the show, she was given a lie detector test where they asked her if she had anything to do with Gary Coleman's passing. And guess what? She failed miserably. As a matter of fact, when she was asked specifically whether she physically caused Gary to fall, she answered no. But the test results came back and indicated that she failed with deception.
Gary Coleman's ex-wife has failed a lie detector test, which included questions surrounding the late actor's death. In the premiere episode of the A&E show Lie Detector, Truth or Deception, an ex-FBI agent and a polygraph expert administered the test to Coleman's ex, Shannon Price, who many believe has not been completely forthcoming in regards to the circumstances surrounding Gary Coleman's 2010 death at age 42. Coleman died on May 28th of 2010, 2 days after a mysterious fall at his home, which led to intracranial hemorrhaging and heart failure. Coleman's death was officially ruled an accident, but people close to the former child star labeled it foul play and pointed the finger squarely at his widow, Shannon Price. In the 2024 documentary Gary, the chilling 911 call is played in which Price refused to help her bleeding husband. She then fled the scene, claiming she didn't want to be traumatized by all the blood. Price also didn't go to the hospital with Coleman and later pulled the plug after just 2 days. In an act that family members have called despicable, Price even sold Coleman's deathbed photos to the tabloids. Now, in a clip released from the forthcoming Lie Detector show, the examiner tells Price, quote, "I asked you the following relevant questions on this test. Did you physically cause Gary's fall? You said no. I also asked, did you physically cause Gary to fall that day? You said no." The examiner then informs Price that she failed the exam with the deception indicated to those relevant questions. Now, Price naturally disputes the results, but the examiner stands his ground, saying, quote, "There's two things I know for sure, Shannon. One, you were not completely honest with me during this polygraph session, and two, there's more to this story that hasn't been told. The body never lies, the body always tells the truth, and your body on that lie detector test spoke loud and clear." Yeek.
Now, I don't know whether or not Gary Coleman's ex-wife Shannon Price murked him or not, and lie detector tests are not admissible in court, but what I do know is this. Whoever the investigators were who were initially assigned to this case really need to go into the storage room, dust off those boxes, and reopen this case, because this right here is looking shady as hell. Listen, let me know what you think about everything that we discussed in today's video, and while you're down there leaving a comment, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. Hey yo, thanks for tuning in to The Source, your source for celebrity news. Peace.